was in that part of the world, you know, she gave me a few bit of the lingo and whatnot. And there was these two, is it geshes? Is that what you call it?
I said nothing earlier.
Nothing, yeah. But what's it? Is it geshes? Is that what you call girls? Gassens. Gassens are boys and geshes are girls.
Yeah.
Aye, okay, so there was these two geshes, or breegies. Is that
Bridgies.
Bridgies, aye. Two bridgies. And they were awful women, they were awful gossips, you know, and they talked to each other all the way to Mass, and all the way through Mass, and all the way home from Mass, about everything that they shouldn't be talking about. Anyway, one day after Mass, one of the Bridgies was looking at the other one, and she was talking to these two people, these two very well-dressed people, you know. The fellow was wearing a big powder blue suit, and he looked very well indeed, and the woman, well, she was looking very well, like Marilyn Monroe, and she had a big huge bag on her, big enough that she could have put a bale of hay into it. And she was watching this conversation, and then eventually they went away, and she approaches her friend, and she says, "Who were they?" And she says, "Oh, they're two returned Yanks." Aye. So she says, "Oh, really?" And of course it was a big deal to know a returned Yank, you know, it was almost like a status symbol, you know. My dad, Lord of mercy, his uncle, my granduncle, was a returned Yank, and they used to love when he come back. It's back in the 50s. He used to bring Meccano sets. Remember Meccano sets, which, you know, in rural Ireland back in the 1950s was like, wow, you know. So yeah, it was always good to see these people coming back from America. So anyway, she says, "Oh, that's very nice. How do you know them?" "Ah, sure, they know we Johnny down the road that went to New York and all the rest of us. And they're just back visiting the family and all." She says, "Will you be seeing them again?" "Oh," she says, "I'll be seeing them tomorrow night. They're coming around for dinner." "Oh, are they now?" She says. "Oh, they're putting awful pressure on you now to have to cook. Those Yanks eat an awful lot, you know." "Oh, aye, oh, they eat an awful lot. And they have starters, did you know that?" "Aye, starters." "Aye, and then they have desserts, and then apparently they have coffee after. Did you mention coffee? Did you hear the likes of it? And wee mints that you dip into them." And she says, "Ah, no, it'll be grand." She says, "I've plenty for them." "What do you have?" She says, "I have a big gander out the back." "A big gander?" She says, "Aye. What are you going to do with that gander?" "Well, I'm going to go home, and I'm going to chase him, I'm going to catch him, I'm going to strangle him, and then I'm going to pluck him, and then I'm going to gush him, and then I'm going to stuff him, and then I'm going to roast him, and then we're going to eat him." "Right, so," she says. And that's exactly what she does. She goes back to the house, and she goes out the backyard, and there's the big gander around eating the bits of seed, whatever's on the ground, thinking about this lovely life ahead of him that he's going to enjoy. Well, she chases him around the yard, and she catches him, and she strangles him, and she plucks him, and she cuts him, and she stuffs him, and she throws him in the oven, and she roasts him, and that's grand. And she waits, and she waits, and she waits, and when the Yanks are supposed to come, they never show up, and she's very sad. Has anyone ever heard of the expression comfort eating before? I've heard of it myself. I was doing a bit of it over there a few minutes ago. And well, she partook in a bit of comfort eating, and it wasn't long before it was nothing left, only a pile of bones. And the following Sunday, this Skesha goes back to Mass, and she's talking to the other Bridgie, and she said, "How did you get on with your two returned Yanks?" She says, "They never showed up." Oh, isn't that awful? You're trying to hide the smile, you know. Serves you right. And she says, "Oh, well, did you cook that big gander?" She says, "I did." "Ah, sure, he was a big bird. Now, there must be plenty of them left over." "Oh, no, there's not." "Ah, you must have given some to the priest." "No, I didn't." "Ah, that wee family down the road, sure, they've nah." "Did you keep any for me?" "No," she says. "What did you do with it?" "I ate it. All of it. All of it," she says. "Do you realise what you have done?" She says, "I ate a goose." "No," she says, "no. You have committed one of the 7 deadly sins." "Oh, be cheaper," she says. "And which one would that be?" "The big long one in the middle." "What's that?" "Now let me see now. Sloth, no, lust is definitely not that one. No. Gluttony. You've committed the sin of gluttony." What should I do?" "Well," she says, "I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to step away from you, because if we were hit by lightning now, the two of us be roasting on the flagstones of hell for all eternity." She says, "Get back into that church there now, before the priest goes, and go straight into that confession box and confess to him that you have committed one of the 7 deadly sins." "Oh, be cheaper." So she goes back in, and she goes into the confession box, and the poor old priest priest is on the other side of it, and he slides it over and he sees it and he goes, oh, gee. I'll never get down the road for the game of cards now. And he goes, of course, he wants to say, what's wrong with you? But he goes through the motions. And she says, Father, I have committed a sin. He says, right, so what would that be now? She says, Father, I committed one of the 7 deadly sins. Oh, he's a bit interested now. He sits up a wee bit. He says, right, okay. And which of the 7 deadly sins would this be? Oh, she says, Father, it's the big long one in the middle. Which one is that now? Hold on a second now, Father. Let me try to remember. Wrath. I remember now, Father. Adultery, she says. He says, what? Yes, Father, I committed the sin of adultery. Well, he's thinking to himself, my goodness, this is serious business. He says, so, how now did you come to commit such a sin of adultery now? I mean, this is, a lady like yourself, long-standing member of the parish, I thought I knew you, but obviously I don't. Please tell me now, confess your sins in front of myself and God. And she's thinking, geez, I only ate an old goose, like I would think it was that bad. And she says, what? How did you come to commit the sin of adultery? And she starts crying, and she's getting very sad. She says, Father, I couldn't help myself. Father, I went inside the house, and there he was lying on his back on the kitchen table, and his 2 legs were sticking up in the air, and he was all brown. Oh, and the grease was dripping off him, Father. And the minute I tasted it, Father, I had to have all of it. And the poor old priest, I don't think, was ever the same ever again.